it can be really amazing how one opinion can change how an entire piece of media gets seen by an audience. Like, for example, when season 4 of SpongeBob first came out, the season mostly had positive reviews. But a few years later, some guy decided to say that the first 3 seasons are the only good seasons of SpongeBob. So now season 4 started to get a bad reputation. Although the reputation for season 4 wasn't as bad as season 6 or season 7's reputation. So I'm gonna go through the episodes that are hated by most of the SpongeBob fanbase to see if they're really as bad as everyone says they are. In other words, reviewing the top 10 most overhated SpongeBob episodes, with 10 being the worst and 1 being the best. I can understand why this episode is so hated, but the reason I think this is overhated is because people overreact way too much to this episode. Sure, the Bikini Bottomites are huge jerks, and so is Squidward, but I really don't think it's that bad. In my opinion, this episode is just really mediocre. Sure, there were some moments that I did love, like when SpongeBob saw Mr. Krabs wearing a plaid, but honestly, this episode is just generic. I didn't even feel anything watching the episodes, even at the moments I was supposed to find frustrating, like SpongeBob being humiliated in front of an entire crowd. So due to that, I give Little Yellow Book a 5 out of 10. Yeah, this is definitely one of the more weaker episodes of season 1, but why do people hate I Was a Teenage Gary? I always hear people say it's bad, but why? Is it because of the slow pacing, or is it because of Gary being mistreated? Anyway, I can see why this episode is so hated, and I don't really like it, because not a lot of things really happen in here. All that happens is Squidward forgets to feed Gary, so he gets scared by a snail version of SpongeBob. That's it. That's the whole entire episode. But this isn't necessarily a bad episode. I mean, I did like the horror aspect of it, but I wish it was just executed better. So I Was a Teenage Gary gets a 5 out of 10. A lot of people despise Restraining SpongeBob due to it being another Squidward torture episode, but to be fair, Squidward did have what was coming to him. SpongeBob is a nice person, and when Squidward made a restraining order against SpongeBob, he was too lazy to even do his job, so Patrick comes in to teach Squidward that no matter what situation you're in, it could be worse. Plus, there are some funny moments, like when the lawyers randomly flew away. The only problem I have with Restraining SpongeBob is the pacing, but this came from season 8, so that was expected. I give this episode a 6 out of 10. This is another episode I think people overreact at too much, thanks to cartoon reviewers from the early 2010s. I like the idea of SpongeBob and Patrick starting their own club, but the first half of the episode is so unbelievably boring. The second half of the episode is better, as it starts to get spicy with Squidward's house just running an entire town, but that goes away very quickly as it's near the very end of the episode. A lot of people hate SpongeBob and Patrick in this episode, but at least they were self-aware enough to try to apologize to Squidward after bothering him. Heck, they even made Squidward an entire cake. 6 out of 10. Cartoon reviewers have to be the most sensitive people on this earth, because how is Boating Buddies of all episodes the main reason you stopped watching SpongeBob? Like, come on, season 6 isn't even that bad. It's actually really good. Whatever, let's just talk about the quality of Boating Buddies. Honestly, Boating Buddies is pretty hit or miss. Not hit or miss as in the sense of some people loving the episode and others finding it unpleasant, but hit or miss as in the execution of Boating Buddies. The beginning is boring, but the second half of the episode is fantastic. I love the idea of Squidward being in boating school, and all of the jokes are hilarious. I give Boating Buddies a 6 out of 10, and it would be higher if the first half wasn't so boring. So here's a little fun fact. Grandma's Kisses is actually my little sister's favorite episode of SpongeBob. Anyway, I can see why people hate Grandma's Kisses, as SpongeBob getting bullied and the Krusty Krab was hard to watch, but that scene is important in the episode as it does advance the plot, so I'll let it slide. I love seeing SpongeBob's grandma, and seeing Patrick's shenanigans in Grandma's house was also funny. My favorite part of the episode has to be the crash out SpongeBob has at the end. Overall, this is a 7 out of 10. This is another episode I think people overreact to. In fact, I think it's actually pretty good. Sure, Patrick putting Forever Glue was infuriating, but I still like Stuck in the Ringer because it's really funny. All of the jokes land like a nuclear bomb. It's amazing. The ending is a bit lame though, with the Forever Glue somehow getting unstuck and the questionable moral at the ending. But I still love this episode. 8 out of 10. I will never understand why this episode is so hated. Yeah, there's the excuse about Pineapple Fever being a Squidward torture episode to justify its hate, but are you kidding me? I can't believe the people who say Pineapple Fever is a bad episode are the same people that unironically enjoy jellyfishing from season 1. Like, excuse me? The jellyfishing episode isn't even that good. It's mid! Is it a stretch to say that Pineapple Fever is underrated? Because it is true. Pineapple Fever is a very similar case to Stuck in the Ringer, but I think Pineapple Fever is better since there isn't any frustrating moments, and this episode just has more jokes. I find it hysterical to see all 3 of the guys going insane, and Squidward falling off the house at the end of the episode is probably the best part. 8 out of 10. I love it. Season 6 has this problem where whenever they have a decent or straight up fantastic episode on their hands, they decide to ruin the episode with a twist ending that leaves the audience feeling disappointed. Now, episodes that do have this problem aren't necessarily bad, because Nautical Novice and Gone are still one of my favorite episodes of Season 6, and not every good episode in Season 6 gets ruined by a twist ending too. Ditchin' and A Life in a Day are some examples of this. Anyway, I love the concept of everyone being gone, and SpongeBob having to get used to living all alone, and him slowly getting more insane was funny. This could have been perfect if it wasn't for that god-awful ending. If I were to change the ending, it would be that everyone in Bikini Bottom went out of town to celebrate some important day for the history of Bikini Bottom, and that SpongeBob didn't wake up in time to celebrate it. With this episode, I can understand why it's hated, because the way SpongeBob treats Gary in the Great Snail Race can be hard to watch for some people, but honestly, it doesn't bother me too much, and the episode is so hilarious. Yeah, I know I keep saying how funny these episodes are in this video, but you need to trust me on this one. It never fails to make me laugh. I loved seeing the snail race too. That was pretty cool. This is the outro of the video, and what I have to say for this outro is that you should just think for yourself. You don't have to agree with the popular opinions on infamous SpongeBob episodes, and you shouldn't have to feel guilty for liking a SpongeBob episode that just so happens to be hated by the fan base. And if you do agree with the popular opinions, then that's also fine too. Just remember to not say anything like, oh, Steven Hillenburg would absolutely hate modern SpongeBob, because first of all, that's not true. And second of all, what do you know? Were you even best friends with Steven in any way? That's all I got to say. Bye, everyone.